the Middle East as well as India. In fact, one of our clients, Nairaipur, was here. I've been a subject matter expert on that project as well. Now, when it comes to smart cities, what we've probably done over 30 of international cities, pretty much in every continent. We have a center of excellence that's based in the US, which I was part of, and as part of that center of excellence, we did a pretty large project for Kazakhstan. The project was called Smart Astana. Astana is a very interesting project because they followed the European Union model of smart cities, where they have 6 components, and typically cities would pick 1 or 2 of the components and then mature them, and as and when they have additional investments, they make investments into the other components. But Astana set aside $10 billion, and they also have the World Expo coming in 2017. So they use that as an intermediary milestone to accelerate the transformation. Now, not all of us in our cities have that kind of money, right, to invest and set aside. On the other side, we've also helped cities like Győr, which is a small city in Hungary, transform themselves. So they started with some low-hanging fruit. Now, the reason I give that comparison is when we talk about smart cities, and especially when you look at the MOUD guidelines, some of it might look over-ambitious, right? Talking about 24/7 water supply, 24/7 power, and some of those, which are basic in other countries, but we are still struggling. Does that mean that we will not do anything, and this will be one more of those grandiose schemes where a lot of investment happens, a lot of talk happens, and nothing happens, right? But this is one opportunity where I think we as beneficiaries, the 3 sets of beneficiaries of urbanization, need to come together. And when I talk about beneficiaries, it's citizens, each of us, you, me, our neighbors, our people that provide help in our households, all of us. The government, anything goes wrong, it's easy to blame governments and bureaucrats and say nothing happens, red tape, they have not come back in power, so they have no interest, this was the other parties. It's always easy for us to play the blame game. But this should be an initiative where the government and citizens come together. And if that happens, you will attract the right set of industries to come in. The economic vibrancy, you can have a beautiful city, but who's going to go live there? If I am asked to go to a certain city and I have a decent job, my kids go to a good school, my wife has a social life, there is hospitals in case my mother gets sick, there's all of that put together in a city that I live in. And if that is not there in another city, why would I move? So I think that holistic approach is extremely important, and this is what we have seen. So one of the cities that I advised earlier this year is the city of Riyadh in Saudi Arabia. Again, it's a very cash-rich city, but they also are under a lot of pressure because they're an oil economy. And as we saw in Dubai and some of the other Middle Eastern cities, there is an end to the oil dominance. Dubai has done a phenomenal job of transforming itself into a trading hub. They're now a financial hub. Halliburton is headquartered there. There's a lot of non-oil activity that is happening there. So we helped Riyadh in their urban plan with certain other forms of opportunities that they can look at to keep that economic vibrancy. So from that perspective, I think we need to all take ownership as beneficiaries and not just rely on our government. Now, as PwC, the other thing we've also done is we've set the stage for thought leadership. We've published over 10 articles and publications in the last year itself. About 5 of them have been marquee events where, including the Prime Minister and Minister of Urban Development, have released some of these reports. So we're very proud of them, and the fact that we've been able to shape the thinking around smart cities. So when we got this opportunity to work with Bhopal, Bhopal is a city that's very close to our hearts. A lot of our senior partners have lived here and have roots here, we made a conscious decision to come and participate in the event, and BMC has been kind enough to BMC has been kind enough to bring us on board to help them with the event. Now, the other thing when we talk about cities, there's been enough spoken about smart cities and how to do and what to do. Now, all of the cities that we have helped transform, no two cities have had a unique or a similar kind of vision when it comes to their smart city vision. Neither have they adopted the same type of solutions to get to that vision. So as Bhopal, what is it that we want to do? What is it that we want to achieve? I think is very important to first understand. And then what are the solutions that will help us get there? So today we can take a selfish point and say if we build massive roads and put in additional investments, we are already breaching 50, 60. We probably are not going to get the benefit out of it. It's for the next generation. So maybe we don't make that investment. Our hard-earned tax is going in there. The other way to look at it is, we are the change agents that will change the future of the city, right? There is something in for us also. There are some low-hanging fruit that can be, invested in earlier on. So what is important to understand is the spectrum of investments. You can't look at all massive long-term investments. You'll have to do a good mix of long-term and short-term investments. The other thing that's extremely important to understand is outcomes, right? A lot of times we make investments, the ministers make the investments, they see it through the end of their, terms. The bureaucrats look at it through the end of their terms, and then the next set of, leaders come. And oftentimes that handshake and handover and ownership does not seem to happen, right? But that doesn't mean that we should not look at an outcome-based approach when we make investments in solutions. Every investment have to have an outcome, and that is why my earlier conversation where I said, as beneficiaries, all of us have a responsibility in building the smart cities. I think that is where we, as citizens or as industries that have invested, can look at the outcomes and say, yes, this is going the right direction, or no, and I'm empowered now to, make a change in course. Now, when it comes to smart cities, what is it that, Bhopal can expect? These are great, experiences from across the world and potentially some other cities. But I want to spend, a couple of minutes talking about what, the three sets of beneficiaries from Bhopal can expect, right? So ideally, we make the right investments, and at some point, Bhopal needs to be a city that is known for its quality of life. It should be an aspirational city where people want to move. Today, a lot of jobs are in Bombay, Delhi, Gurgaon. But I lived in Gurgaon for 5 months after I moved back from the US after 15 years. From our office in DLF Cyber City to get to the main road, it takes an hour during peak rush hour. Is that the city that you want to be known for? Paris, for example, is quoted when it comes to transportation. An average Parisian is supposedly spending 4 years of their life finding parking. So when we transform our cities, do we want to be a Paris and get into that zone where people are wasting a lot of time? Or do we want to be an aspirational city that, will have the best quality of life? So that is something we have to think and plan. Earlier panel spoke about, the BRT that was being planned in NRDA. We can plan after the effect, or we can plan for the situation to arise. And that's the kind of thinking we need to do. So if you do that, I think Bhopal can be a city where you know where parking is available if you go out. So you're not wasting your time trying to find parking. You probably have a good situational awareness. There's an accident, then you know that's not the road to take. You take a different direction. There is a chance of rain coming. There is a lot of information that's put into the hands of the citizens. And that is the kind of city that you want. I mean, it's great to have good buildings and, you know, all of the other infrastructure, but knowledge and the fact that you will be assured of a good quality of life is extremely important. Now, when it comes to investments, traditionally, we've been concentrating on the manufacturing sector. We've had some great success in the city and the state. But the knowledge economy is something that we cannot afford to ignore. People are today talking about incubation centers. I mean, there are some great examples of success. If you take Flipkart and other firms, they've all started small, but they've exploded. They're like multi-billion-dollar corporations. In fact, there is a firm that I met in the US. It's a domestic firm that manufactures coir-based products to stop seepage of earth from lakes and other sensitive areas. So that is again innovation that is coming from the knowledge economy, but there's a manufacturing component as well to it. The other thing is venture capitalists. I mean, we talk about attracting investments in manufacturing or electronics and other areas. Now, what are we doing to get the investor community, that's the venture capitalists, to come into the state as well? How can we fuel that part? That should be another thought that we are constantly thinking about. And the last one is around co-creation. How do we create solutions with the local communities, whether it's your colleges here or entrepreneurs here? Because then there is a vested interest. I mean, these are your own citizens. They understand the DNA of the city better than anybody else, and they are totally vested in the success of the city. So I think these are some things to look at, keep in mind when you are designing your come make in MP, make in Bhopal type initiatives. The last one is about having an effective government. Now, today we've seen some great participation. There is, a good representation from Maharashtra, the state, from the center, the urban local bodies, and also the industry. I think that is a very, very fundamental and a powerful ecosystem to nurture if you want to have a successful and sustainable smart city model. You could then, now look at, once you have your smart city vision finalized and the solutions finalized, look at how you can involve this ecosystem to continue keeping up that momentum, continue making the investment, and continue making sure that this is sustainable and not drop midway. Now there is one easy way, but it's not a straightforward way. But I think some of the cities have mastered this act, and I don't see why we cannot do it. Seemingly it is a very, very structured approach, and this is what we call a day in the life of a citizen. When you design anything around the investments needed for smart cities, you don't have to look far. You don't have to, look at what the US did or Europe did or whatever. You can look at your own citizens. Take a cross-section of your citizens. Look at what happens in their day, right from the time they wake up. The 4 stages in during the day. I think that will give you enough knowledge to say what is it that the citizens want, what are the touch points with the governments, what are the touch points with the industry. Based on that, you can come up with solutions that are very, very local for your city. You don't need to, reinvent the wheel. I mean, the proven approach, and as consultants in the city, we will be doing a lot of, citizen advocacy. In the center also, PwC has helped with the MyGov initiative, where citizen advocacy and the voice of the citizen is heard, and the PM himself looks at the sentiment on a daily basis. So, a lot of the speeches and that touch points that we're having today is striking that personal chord with all cross sections of the society, and that is because they're making a conscious effort to understand the Indian mindset. Now, the last part that I want to, leave on the table is, we did a survey of about 120 cities across the world. And what we found is for smart cities to take off and sustain, the single largest factor that enables it is leadership commitment. Until and unless the leadership commitment is there, no matter what we plan, this is not going to take off. We are fortunate to be in a city where there's a lot of commitment, starting from the municipal commissioner all the way to the CM, and we are also fortunate to have a great connect with the central government. So let us not waste this opportunity. Let us do the best of what we can, and we can definitely be the city of choice for every single Indian. We could be the first choice of investment destination when it comes to investments for any global firm looking to invest in India. And finally, we could be the city that sets a marquee government, a reference government that will truly manage a city in a very transparent and efficient manner. Good luck to Bhopal on your smart city journey. Jai Hind.
और श्री आलोक शर्मा जी से निवेदन करूंगा कि वो श्री बिजू कादापुरथ, डायरेक्टर एंड ग्लोबल स्मार्ट सिटीज एक्सपर्ट पीडब्ल्यूसी को स्पीकर में मिनटों देकर सम्मानित करें।